Hello, this is a short tutorial on how to build a Miro board so that an outside observer can follow a storyboard-like flow on it, which you can use to communicate the feeling of how you want a game to progress without actually building the whole game. In addition to being useful for communication, this is a useful technique for things like prototyping meta systems that don't exist yet for parts of a game that do exist. And I'll explain how I've used it for that after showing you how to set it up. So on the screen here, I've set up a board on Miro as a mock-up of something you might use to run people through. In this example, our game has a front-end start screen with some typical options on it, has some levels you play through, and we are building this board to communicate to someone what it feels like to flow through the game without them actually playing the game itself. So here are the tools we're going to use. First, frames. Frames in Miro, each frame is a way of designating an area to be looked at. So we're going to use frames to represent each board of the storyboard that we want to present. Second, links. Each object on Miro has a link which will take you right to that object. Much like part of a web page might have a hyperlink that takes you there. So to find the link for any object, right-click on it. In this example, I'm right-clicking on my text that says load game, and you would copy link, which is Control-Alt-Shift-C as a very hellish keyboard shortcut. I always just right-click. Third, we're going to use the link to function. So objects in Miro can be made interactive by right-clicking them and selecting link to, and then pasting a link that you want them to link to. While you can use this for external web pages, like making a sticky that says Google, right, and making it a link to google.com by link to www.google.com. You can do that. But we are going to use this to link to other objects on the same Miro board whose link addresses we have found with the copy link function. Finally, we'll be making standard objects on Miro board like text input with T, sticky notes with N, shapes. These are all over here. You can just mess around, get comfortable with just putting stuff on a board that kind of lets you squint or represent a vague version of what you imagine would be in your game. Okay, let's get started. So you can see here a simple example storyboard I've created. It has 5 frames on it. Each of these is a frame. And I'll just make another frame now so that you could see, if I'm making a third level, this is a frame, and you name it, third level, and I would have to get some stuff to put in it. For now, I'll just throw a sticky on it that says, imagine this is a screenshot, right? That's fine. So using frames for each of these screens helps compartmentalize and make the contents of each frame feel distinct from the contents of other frames. You don't need to put frames down to put, sticky notes and images down and stuff like that. But here you can imagine more easily that this is like your starting menu, and this is what happens when you're in level 1, and this is level 2, right? Now, there's a setting on the board itself that we can use to make people landing on the board look only at the frame that we want them to. And so this is part of what we'll need to do to make coming into this board intuitive for people that we're linking it to, for people that we're trying to get the feeling of what we're doing to without backseat driving for them, right? So here's how we do this. Next to where the name of your board is set, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a menu, and this menu has options for board, edit, view, preferences, and has something else on it as well to send to another display. In this case, you're going to go to board, and you're going to go to start view, and this is letting you frame a view frame, edit this sort of box by dragging on it, And in our case, we want people to only land on the starting frame, right? And so, I put a sticky note here that sort of gives people some instructions, and you can use this to make sure that people are not overwhelmed when they're coming in, that they're only looking, where you want them to look. And so if you were coming into this board for the first time, right, you'd only be looking at something like this. Okay, so that's a good place to start, but this doesn't, do anything on its own. So in this example, I have some text, new game, on my first frame, right? And I want the user to be able to click on that frame and have it take them to a representation of what the first level of the game might be. So to do that, I've made frame 2 have the title first level, right? And I pasted in an image of World 1-1 in Mario. You get my Steam pop-ups. Sorry about that. So now I can right-click on the first level frame, and I can select copy link, which gives me a URL for it. So I'm going to do that. And then I can go back to my new game text on frame 1, and I can right-click that, and I can click link to. And you can also just pick an object here to link to, but I like to copy it in just to make sure I'm getting to the right thing. And you can see that this creates an arrow now on the text, right? So left-clicking on this arrow is going to take me directly to the frame that I've linked to. And we can do this from any object to any other object in Miro. So for example, I've added these 2 sticky notes that represent outcomes from playing through first level, right? So you either win or you die, okay? And I can have the sticky corresponding to winning linked to World 1-2, right? So I go over here and I copy this link, and I go back here and I say link to, and I send it there, right? And now if you win, okay, you go to the second level. And if you die, maybe you go back to the front end, because this is a really simple game. But maybe, maybe there's something else. Maybe you go back to a checkpoint or something. You could represent that with frame 2, right? So I'm going to copy the link to the starting frame here, and I'm going to link to there, and I'm going to put it in there. All right, now you start the game, and you go to the first level, and if you died, oh, you're back here. All right, start again, right? And, oh, you won this time, and now you're on the second level, etc., etc. So you can see how this pattern works. And I've, simulated the flow through the game by adding these links from frame to frame. Similarly, you can imagine doing the same thing with the options screen. You copy a link here, and you go to options, and you link to, and it goes there, right? And all right, video options is going to send you to the sub options screen. So we're going to grab a link there. We're going to go here. And we're going to link to. And yeah, it's just putting arrows all over your board, but you can have return to options take you back here, etc. Right? You can just sort of outline through interactively a walkthrough of any states of the game that you can imagine. So that's the fundamental pattern that lets you use Miro as a guided walkthrough. And you can see that, like, on larger sticky notes, right, the arrow is, or on sticky notes, the arrow is kind of more evident than it is on these text boxes. You can't really customize that. So I often use sticky notes because it's just quite obvious on them to click. And then I did mention at the beginning that I've also used this to simulate how players would feel about metagame kind of stuff that didn't exist yet in a game that did exist. So if you wanted to, let's say you built some core loop, right? You built, 5 minutes of gameplay. You built a level. You built a boss or something like that. And you have ideas for how you want to connect all this stuff together, but you're not entirely sure it's a good idea, and it's going to be expensive in terms of time to build out and actually test. Well, you could have these sorts of examples as frames, and then you could add, an interstitial frame that's like post post level rewards, right? And in this way, you can say, right, either some concept art you could paste in here, or a sticky note that says your jump has a 50% chance to jump double height or whatever. You could imagine then like flowing through from U1 to this post level rewards, and that lets you get a read on curb appeal of your sort of designs immediately, right? How excited would you be about this? How excited would you be about that? And of course, if you can mock stuff up in concept art or in some sort of wireframe, right, that is more compelling than just putting sticky notes on the board. But either way, this is a tool that lets you sort of squint at what a flow might look like without actually building the whole game, which is tremendously valuable. So that's it. That's the whole explanation. I hope that this is interesting, and thanks for listening.